Welcome to my lecture review for my CompTIA Security Plus course. Here we're looking at the book CompTIA Security Plus, Guide to Network Security Fundamentals. We're looking at 5th edition. Here we're looking at Chapter 5, Basic Cryptography. This is always a fun topic because cryptography is always one of those areas where a lot of people just kind of glaze over it. And there's a lot in cryptography that we have to understand. So the objective of this chapter is to define cryptography, describe things like hashes, asymmetrical and symmetrical cryptography algorithms, and list the various ways in which cryptography is used. So, defining cryptography involves, first of all, understanding what it is, what it can do, and what it can do for us as well. Understand how it can be used as a security tool, and how can it be used to protect data. In essence, cryptography is a way to scramble the information or data so it's not easily read. It will transform information into a secure form so that only authorized individuals can access it, or those that are able to break it. It ciphers it. That way it becomes like an unreadable string of text that, unless you know how to decrypt it or decipher it, it makes no sense. We also have what's called stenography. Stenography hides the existence of data, typically in an image, in audio, in a video file. That way it basically will embed a message in the file itself. And this is achieved by dividing the data into both the hidden and unused portions of the file. For example, cryptography. Stenography is a type of cryptography. Here we're looking at stenography specific. And you'll notice there is a header and a second header. Well, there is portions inside of the metadata where we can actually input or insert additional data. It could be simple phrases, it could be data, it could be a second image, and so much more. The origin of cryptography, it's going back to Julius Caesar, and actually even well before Julius Caesar. But Julius Caesar was one of the first major individuals, Alexander the Great as well, that used cryptography. Part of this deals with encryption, and encryption is the ability to take the original message and transform it into a secret message using a cryptography algorithm. So when we think cryptography, we are really thinking encryption, decryption, encoding, decoding, taking a message and securing it, or if we're talking about decryption, it's taking the hidden message or the secret message and putting it back to the original form. We also have to understand clear text, and clear text is data that is stored without any form of encryption, meaning as it is traversing a communication media, it's all readable. When it's idle, it's all readable. So again, plain text is clear text that is made to be encrypted. Plain text data is input into a cryptography algorithm, and it will then be encrypted. Typically there is a key that does this, and the key is a mathematical value entered into the algorithm to produce the ciphertext, or the encrypted data. Basically, plain text plus key, when input into an algorithm, should generate the encrypted message. The reverse process will use the key to decrypt the message. However, here we're only looking at one key. So one key to encrypt, the same key to decrypt. So the nice thing is, the same key can be used both ways. But what happens if one key is compromised? Well, since they're the same key, both keys won't then be compromised. We're going to hold off on that for a few more slides, because that's going into asymmetric and symmetrical keys, and we're going to talk about that later. But we have to understand a few more foundation principles before we get into that material. Cryptography is divided into the 5 major areas of protection. We should already be pretty familiar with confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is the ability to ensure only authorized parties can access it. Integrity ensures the information is correct and unaltered. And availability ensures that the data is available to those authorized to use it. We have to add in 2 more for cryptography. Authentication, and this ensures that the sender can verify through cryptography, typically, that they are who they say they are. Non-repudiation, and that basically proves that the user performed the action. You walk up to a bank, an ATM, and you pull out money. The bank shows it's non-reputable that it was you, because it had your card, had your PIN number, had your face on camera. That way, it shows that it really was you that did that action. Again, the 5 major characteristics and descriptions. They also have a layer of protection that you can read through. A fundamental difference in cryptography algorithms is the amount of time it takes to process. Stream ciphers take one character and replace it with another. Block ciphers will manipulate the entire block of plain text at one time. And sponge function will take as input a string of any length and return a string of a requested variable length. So let's say I want to take a string of 20 characters and I want to break it down into 25 characters. A sponge function will do that. 3 categories for cryptography algorithms. Honestly, hashing algorithms or hashes. It's a form of cryptography, but when you think cryptography, you're really looking at like keys. Okay, maybe not always, but when I think cryptography, I think keys. But hashing algorithm is still a cryptography algorithm or cryptographic algorithm. So hash values have to be there because we have to be able to calculate hashes, and that is actually part of the cryptographic algorithm process. We have asymmetrical and symmetrical. We got slides covering each one of those. The hashing algorithm is the most basic type of cryptography algorithm. It would create a unique digital fingerprint of a set of data, and it is commonly called hashing. Basically, you can hash a value or hash a file to verify that, or break it down into a very simple string of text. You can send the file and the hash value, and you can use the hash to verify if the file was modified. I did simple videos before showing a photo where all I did was add in an extra line. It was like a smiley face, and I put one extra line in there, just a small line, and it changed the hashing value. This fingerprint is called a digest, sometimes called a message digest or a hash, and this represents the content. The content cannot be used to reveal the original data set, but it can be used for comparison purposes. Secure hashing algorithm characteristics. There are a few. Things like fixed size, the uniqueness of them, the original of it, and the secure of it. Uniqueness is basically when you hash 2 files, very rarely will they ever actually be the same value. Only the original file should have the same value of the hash value. However, sometimes a collision will occur, and that's where you have 2 unique files that will end up with the same hash value. It's rare, but it does happen. Original, that's the data set that cannot be created or predefined a hash. And then secure is the resulting hash cannot be reverse engineered. You cannot reverse a hashing algorithm to determine the original data. Hashing is used to determine the integrity of a message. And we have things like the hash message authentication code, or HMAC. And this is just a hash variation providing improved security. It will use a shared key, and the receiver uses a key to decrypt the hash. Basically, if I send you a file and a key, we can verify the digest or the hash value to make sure that they're the same of what I sent you. That way you can verify its integrity. But when you're doing this and you're looking at the hashing algorithm, you may want to ask yourself, does it meet the 5 characteristics? Is it confidential? It really isn't. Is it available? It doesn't really do anything for availability, authentication, or non-refutable. But it does help with integrity. So again, pros and cons of each. As we move on, we look at the most common hashing algorithms, which are things like SHA, or Secure Hashing Algorithm. SHA-1 is very common, though it's been shown to be easy to break, so we're getting rid of that. Message Digest, or MD. MD5 is a very common one. And we have a few other ones like RIPE-MD and Whirlpool, though MD and SHA are the big two. MD, again, Message Digest, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is where we're currently at. It's designed to address the weaknesses in 4. It has a message length padding to 512 bits. Its weakness is in compression function, which could lead to collisions, which we already talked about a collision. Some security experts recommend using a more secure hashing algorithm, something like SHA, S-H-A, which is more secured than MD, though like SHA-3 uses a spunk function instead of a stream or block cipher. SHA-1 is very common, but again, SHA-1 has been shown to be a concern. So there is a new SHA-256, which is where it's heading. Whirlpool is a more recent cryptography hashing function, and this was adopted by the iOS. It does create a hash of 512 bits like MD, and again, it's a little bit more secure than the other ones. We also have the Race Integrity Primitive Evaluation Message Digest, or RIPE-MD, and here we're looking at the primary design feature is 2 different and independent parallel chains of computations. The results are combined at the end process to be more secure. Here we have the different hash types and the digests. Again, we're looking at MD5, SHA-1, SHA-256. Those are common ones. SHA-3 and Whirlpool are slowly coming in, but I've seen MD5, SHA-1, and SHA-256 quite often. So moving into symmetric and asymmetric, symmetric cryptography algorithm uses the same key for encryption and decryption. Common algorithms include things like DES, or DES, Data Encryption Standard, Triple DES, or Triple Data Encryption Standard, the Advanced Encryption Standard, AES, as well as other algorithms. Issues with symmetric is they may fit the first 3, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, but things like authenticity and non-repudiation, they don't really meet. Again, the same key to encrypt and decrypt our messages. DES and triple DES being DES 3 times. This is the most secure version. It uses different keys for each round. But again, these have issues. Here's triple des. We have 3 different keys. A little bit more time consuming, but this will actually cipher it 3 different times. AES is the more current version. This is approved by NIST in 2000 to replace DES. It does perform 3 steps on every block. That's going to be 128 bits of plain text. It is designed to be secure well into the future, and this is actually one of our more secure algorithms. However, keep in mind that this is symmetric, so it does use same key for encryption and decryption. Other algorithms are things like RC, IDEA, Blowfish. Blowfish is a block cipher. There aren't any significant weaknesses that have been identified with Blowfish. The reason I say Blowfish is when I did my Security Plus, there was a question on Blowfish. But I mean, these are kind of, again, the other algorithms, not common ones. So you really don't need to waste your time going into too much depth with them. One-time pad, or OTP, creates a truly random key to combine with plain text. Considered the only known method to perform encryption that cannot be broken mathematically. A pad is a long sequence of random letters. Though in math, random is very subjective. So the weakness of symmetrical keys is distributing and maintaining a secure single key among multiple users, distributed geographically. Hence see one key for encrypting and decrypting. Well, we have what's called asymmetrical key cryptography algorithms, and this is known as public key cryptography. It uses 2 mathematical related keys, one public key, which is available to everyone and freely distributed, and one private key. The private key is known only to the individual to whom it belongs. I will send a sender. The sender will actually use the public key to encrypt the message. Here we're using, Bob is going to send it to Alice, sorry. So Bob will take Alice's public key, encrypt the message, and send it to Alice. Alice's private key is the only key that can decrypt Alice's message from her public key. So I may have Alice's public key, but only Alice can actually take my message to her using her public key and decrypt it. Just like if Alice wanted to send a return message to Bob, Alice would have to take Bob's public key, use that to encode the message, and then send it. Bob would have his private key, and Bob would use that private key to decrypt the message. Keys come in pairs. Public and private keys are required. Both directions. Keys can work in both directions. Gotta be careful with this because we're going to talk more about that in the advanced portion, but there's questions there. Digital signatures are an electronic verification that would verify the sender, prevents the sender from disowning the message, and proves the message integrity. Here we have a hashing algorithm. You know, let's go from Bob to Alice. Bob will hash it. We'll take the digest. We'll use Bob's private key to send it to Bob's public key. She will then take it and then break it down, use the hashing algorithm to verify, and be able to read the message, or at least be able to get the digest. Maybe not get the message, but gets the digest of the message. That way, when she actually gets the message, if she runs the hash against it, the digest should be the same. Here is the walkthrough. When you want to perform what action, what key to use, which key to use, and then the explanation. I'll let you guys read through that. Going back through asymmetrical, we have RSA and the elliptical curve cryptography. RSA is asymmetrical, so that's a big one. RSA is asymmetrical. That gets asked several times on Security Plus and other security examinations. Here we have the elliptical curve cryptography, looking at the curve. Quantum cryptography will exploit the properties of microscopic objects such as photons. InTrueCrypt. This is a lattice-based cryptography which relies on a set of points in space. Faster than RSA, faster than ECC. It's more resilient, but does require a lot more power. Here's lattice-based cryptography. Again, we're looking at more processing power to encrypt this way. Quantum cryptography attempts to use the unusual and uniqueness behavior of microscopic objects. The exploits here will exploit the properties of the microscopic objects, again, such as photons. We have to have an understanding of key exchanges, because if we have to have private and public keys, we have to have a way to hand out these keys, or to exchange these keys. So we have the Diffie-Hellman, or the DH version, and that will be different groups. We have the Diffie-Hellman, I can never pronounce this word, Efferlin, DHE. We have the elliptical curve, DH key, and we have the perfect forward secretary, or secrecy key. These are groups, and these are the different methods for distributing keys. When we're setting up things like VPNs, you'll see like a DH group. That's the Diffie-Hellman group. Cryptography should be used to secure data that needs to be protected, and it can be applied through either software or hardware. If we are dealing with cryptography, understand that the keys used to encrypt the data should be kept very secure, because if those keys are compromised, the data could also then be compromised. We also have things like file and file system cryptography. That's the encryption that can be used to encrypt or decrypt files or folders or an entire hard drive. We also have what's called pretty good privacy, PGP, or pretty good protection, depending on who you talk to. And this is a widely used asymmetrical cryptography system, typically for emails. We have the GNU Privacy Guard, PGP. This runs on Windows, Unix, and Linux operating systems. And again, it's another way to protect files, folders, and the overall file system. We have a Windows-based encrypted file system called EFS, and this is a cryptography system used in Windows. It can only be used in NTFS. It's tightly integrated with the file system, and it has the ability to encrypt and decrypt and be transparent to the users. Users can set encryption attributes for a file in the Advanced Attribute dialog box, and this is for storing the files in a folder set for encryption, and this will be automatically encrypted and decrypted as you need. It will use the cipher.exe command to encrypt files. Again, we have the whole disk encryption. You could be looking at BitLocker if you're looking at Windows. BitLocker will encrypt the entire system volume, including Windows registry, and this prevents an attacker from accessing the data by booting from another operating system or placing the hard drive in another computer. Software encryption can be subject to attacks, and there are vulnerabilities to it, so cryptography can also be embedded in the hardware, which does provide higher degrees of security, and it can be applied to any type of hardware, including things like USB. The hardware encryption will have to use an additional module, things like a Trusted Platform Module, or TPM, or a hardware security model that is actually encrypted at the hardware level. USB encryption is very common. That way, if your USB device is stolen, you have a way to make sure the data on it is protected. Hard drive encryption is self-encrypting, and it protects everything on the hard drive. We already talked about the Trusted Platform Module, TPM, and it's a chip on a computer motherboard that provides cryptographic services, and this will include a truly randomized number generator. It's entirely done behind the hardware, and it's not subject to the software attacks. It will prompt for passwords if the hard drive is moved to a different computer or if it's altered. Again, we have the Hardware Secure Module, and this is a secure cryptographic process. This includes an onboard key generator and key storage, and it's used to perform accelerated symmetric and asymmetrical file encryption. And that is this chapter in a nutshell. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any comments, again, leave them below. Thank you. Have a great day.